Welcome back to Wednesday Night Sessions. This is season 3 since we went virtual, I don't know, a year and a half ago, something like that at this point. For those of you who are new, this is a show based in Farmington, Michigan, sponsored by KickstART Farmington, a local arts organization. So I always like to give them a shout out and thank you for supporting this. And it was originally a live series focused on writers in the Metro Detroit area. And with the pandemic, we've taken advantage of the ability to mix things up. So we get some writers from Michigan, some from Metro Detroit, some from far and wide. Tonight, we have Brittany Rogers with us from Detroit. So this is one of those episodes that we might be able to rerun live and in person someday in another year or two down the road. Brittany is a poet in Detroit, as I mentioned, and like always, I'll throw it over to her for a reading, and then we'll come back for 2 short interview questions afterwards. So, Brittany, thank you for joining us, and I'll throw it over to you.
Thank you for having me. Hey, y'all. So as Mitch mentioned, I am a poet from Detroit proper. I like to throw that in because it's important to me. I'm a native, been here my whole life. Likely will be here my whole life unless I go south. And I'm a writer and educator and co-editor-in-chief for Muzzle Magazine. And I'm going to read a few poems for y'all, mostly centered in or about Detroit. So thanks for having me. The first poem I'm reading is called Winter Ritual. It is May 3rd, and yet it is very sad and gray outside still. And something that I wish for every year, like clockwork, is the return of a very swift spring and a very long summer, which unfortunately we don't often have in the Midwest. So this poem is called Winter Ritual, and it's a shout out to seasonal depression and a plea for spring. Winter Ritual. Fling open the curtains, wide, wider. Light the candles on the dresser, the vanity, the nightstand. Flick the switch on the sun lamps, glaring at each other from their corners of the room. Retrieve the bottles of vitamin D, covered in winter's dust. Today may be the day you remember to take them, the day you remember what they say of the seasons, their tips for crushing sadness beneath your heels. Yes, it could be worse. In some states, sunlight is a myth whispered by folks who are from not there. But what of it? What when there are places where the soil is soft year-round and you could rise out of bed without this unstable ritual, this rigged joy on the verge of unraveling at its seam? So the second poem also, again, is centered in or around about Detroit. It's called Blackout. And I don't know if everyone remembers this, but I do, so we're gonna go for it. In 2003, I was a sophomore in high school. And out of nowhere in August, we had this like huge, massive blackout. I remember like people panicking and thinking that something like major was about to happen. It was 2 years after, 9/11. So, well, sorry, no, yes. Long day in teacher brain. But there was just this mass sense of panic and this worry that maybe we were being attacked, a lot of speculation. And then we realized that, in fact, it was just a power outage. So blackout, August 2003, Detroit. In an epigraph, it was one of the biggest power outages that the US ever saw. At first, people were worried it was an act of terrorism. But when the blackout was confirmed as merely a power outage, the mood shifted. That's Michigan Radio Newsroom. The grills turn up, somebody's speakers serenade all our porches, and we jam, smoke-soaked and lawless, all open hormones in this powerless field. What is it about the end of the world makes you think you are owed an explanation? From God, from your mama, from the boy who ghosted months ago when the air became more steam than breeze, his number is still memorized and half dialed each evening. You would chase him down, make him answer to you while the streetlights are silent. But this block, this city, don't know how to tell us apart in the daylight, done swallowed whole bodies before this night, ripe for disappearing. First, the neighbors on the left. Next, Maria, a dandelion blown away from the passenger seat of her new man's custom Cutlass. My city give a fuck about the proper order of things. It love a malfunction. All them downed wires, mirrors broken in the street, our tires stolen, the minivan on bricks in our own driveway. This block, hormonal, lawless. Sometimes in May, it snows. Read 2 more short poems for you. This next one is Benediction, Israel Baptist Church. You only need to go down once, but no one stopped me. Tiny bride lured by the organ's sweet brown tongue. I beat the choir's last hum every service. Living, he loved me. Giddy off communion wine. My twig arms stretched towards the patched roof, towards where I imagined God sat, watching me kneel for prayer again, again, and last week's stockings. Perhaps I've always been a greedy thing, God of too much. I swallow and swallow, snake-throated miracle. Oh, how he loves me. I know. I begged for it. And before I go to my last poem, I've been doing a lot of recalling about family things, about what the city means to me. As a person who's lived here my whole life, as a person whose grandmother migrated here from the South. And one of my most rooted memories is of church. And I was one of those kids who would get like rebaptized or recommitted every single week. And I was an adult. I'm like, why did they let me do that? But as a kid, it was like my purest joy. So almost all of my fond memories are like the summer, church, my granny. So I'm gonna end on a poem that centers my grandma. Elegy on Forgetting. A penicillin shot took my grandmother's memory. She's always been allergic to needles. At random, she recites old addresses, gives me enough quarters to play 3661 when she dreams of Beaconsfield, 1832 when her heart tugs her back through the cemetery across the street. I don't visit like I should. These kids, that school, this man, self-care. The 20-minute drive across 94. Granny asks why it takes so long, though we both know the East Side don't do shortcuts. She swoons like a child in awe when I call. Yes, girl, the Lord put you on my heart, and here you are, calling. On days when the penicillin is a pair of dice rattling through her brain, she calls me by my mama's name. Kat, you remember when? Back before your daddy died, when we was on Lycast. 3 years now since my mama up and moved to Alabama. I'm not sure which one of us Granny believes she is talking to when she asks, when you gonna come see your old girl and bring your tail on home? Thank you.
Man, those are phenomenal.
Oh, thank you. I'm a Granny's girl. She's my she's my baby.
Yeah, I think that came through. That came through loud and clear in the poem. That was beautiful.
Thank you.
And I love, like, that's one of my favorite, like, little known facts about Detroit. I'm gonna forget the proper wording of it, but it's like the highest number of churches per populate to per capita to
Per capita, yeah.
I'm screwing up the wording of it. But like, people who aren't from here don't know that. Like, there's a gorgeous church around every corner.
So yeah, that used to be the running joke, is that if you wanted to, you could find a beauty supply store, a liquor store, and a church on like literally every corner intersection, and it is factual.
That is Detroit. So yes. Yes. I also love, I'm out in the suburbs. I love that you pointed out Detroit proper. Like, I've gotten into that argument with friends a number of times. They're like, no, you're from Detroit. I'm like, I am not from Detroit.
Respectfully.
I'm not I don't try to claim that cash. Like, no, I'm not from Detroit.
I think Detroiters are some of the most particular people I've ever seen about that. So sometimes I feel bad because I'm like, ooh, y'all be really.
I think maybe that's why I get into the fight with friends. Like, I'm trying to help them, right? Like, no, you do not say that. You are not from Detroit. It's easy for me. I'm a transplant. I'm a farm boy originally. I'm from the middle of the state originally, right? So I moved down
Gotcha.
here, got married. So I think it's easier for me to recognize that. Like folks who grew up in like Livonia or like West Bloomfield or something, like they might feel more of a pull to say they're from Detroit. And like I get that I'm not from Detroit.
Yeah, we're really aggressive about it. I think it's because Detroit catches such like a horrendous reputation. I don't know, that home here means something very special to us. So, and there's a big push with people like, to move out or to leave. And so for the folks who are still here, it's like, no, I live here and you do not live here.
Yeah, it's a degree of pride. Like every city has its pride, or like people say, like I'm from here. Like I think you have to be at least from around Detroit. Like you have to know real Detroiters to understand like it's a whole different level of pride for Detroit, like a New Yorker. I'm gonna get flamed by my New York friends, but like I do think Detroiters have a higher level of pride. Really means something, Well, anyway, yeah, thank you for reading those poems. Those were gorgeous and fantastic. I guess I'm going to ask some greedy questions. We were chatting before we started recording about we're both teachers, we're both parents who write. So I'm going to ditch my original question. I'm going to go with we both have young children, and I'm always curious. On the show, sometimes I try to do the whole like look behind the curtain, for people who aren't writers. Like, how does this work? Because writers have this mythology in our culture, like brilliant ideas birthed from our brains, like Athena out of Zeus's head or something. Like, now I try to explain revision to folks. Like, no, this is draft 32 of this,
right?
And it's still kind of mediocre. I'm talking about mine. You're not yours.
Mine too.
So how do you do it? Like, so as a parent, like where does the writing happen? You've got an insanely demanding day job as a teacher, insanely demanding life as a parent. Like, when does the writing happen?
Ooh,
I'm always open for ideas, right? That's why I'm asking.
I mean, I kind of have to steal it. I think back a lot to what Toni Morrison said when she talked about like being a parent who wrote. And she said that she would often like write down a to-do list and then cross out everything that wasn't like mandatory for like her soul, like her well-being. And the two things that were always left were like take care of her kids and write. And so whatever she had to like shuffle or abandon for the day, sometimes had to get abandoned to get that done. And so sometimes for me that looks like writing late at night. Sometimes that looks like lately my youngest is about to be 8 months. And I get up really early so I can work out because it gives me dopamine, which I kind of need, a little bit of serotonin. And then we spend like the next couple of hours before I start work together. And so, on a day where he's quiet, I might pull out my notebook really, sly and be like, all right, let me jot things down. Lately though, I've also gotten really helpful advice from, I'm in an MFA program at Randolph, which is an incredible program. So if you're looking for a low risk program, I vouch for it. I recommend. But my mentor, Angel Nafis, talks a lot about like work-life balance. And one of the things that she's encouraged me to do is fold my whole life into my writing. So that when I sit down to write, that's not the first time I'm thinking about whatever it is that I'm going to write, right? So like, the reading, of course, is a part of it. The living is a part of it. If a line or two comes to me, then I like jot it down in my notes app on my phone, or I might talk it into my phone so that when I do actually sit down to write, there's already all of these things that I've been thinking about, all of these questions that I have, and I don't have to spend as much time trying to figure out what I've been thinking about.
Yeah. That's awesome. I love that. Yeah, and the stealing time. That's a great way of putting it. And I mean, Toni Morris, she's obviously like, the under-recognized prophet of our times. Like, of course, she's gonna have a great answer for it.
She is like a guiding light for me. I go back every time and I'm just like, okay, you know what, mother, you're right. That makes sense. That makes sense. She said once that she will get up at like 4 or 5 in the morning because it was the only time that her kids were still asleep and write for a long while. Yeah. Or like she'd be driving and at the red light, she'd jot down whatever. And it was just a habit that stuck. So even once her kids were older, that's when she wrote.
Yeah. It's a lot of writers have that story. Like they wake up, brew a pot of coffee at 4 a.m. I mean, they're practically dairy farmers where I grew up. You wake up before dawn and get to it. So I'm not sure why I'm not better at that. Like I did that in my teenage years. I should do that now, right? So kind of a connected question. I'm going to cheat. I mean, you're going to kind of get three questions, two, 1A and a 1B.
Ask away.
So you're squeezing the writing in as a parent, but K-12 teaching is insanely demanding. So do you find yourself doing like, do you write on your lunch break, or do you write with your students when they have any kind of like open writing? Like, how does your writing and your teaching life overlap, or does it at all?
It does, in that I bring in a lot of poetry. I encourage a lot of creative thinking. I don't really write in the building. It's just a different part of my brain.
Yeah.
Although I write a lot on PD days. Something about the monotony of it is like, what would be great, a poem. I think my students know that I'm a poet, or at least I might mention it to them, but I don't know that it comes up a lot. I do. I'm a writer in residence for Inside Out Literary Arts. So after school every Thursday, I run a poetry club, but I tell them my name is Brittany, even though some of them have me as a teacher. So they're like, okay, Miss Rogers. Okay.
I love it. Inside Out's a fantastic organization. Yeah, I kind of blanked there. You said you write on the PD days, and like I'm trying to think, like, how do you translate professional development days for somebody who's not in education? Like, other people have staff meetings, right? It's like a staff meeting on steroids,
A meeting that could have been an email for 8 hours.
Yeah, yeah. And not an 8-hour email, like a 2-line email. Like, how can we expand this? Like in writing, it's exploding the moment to the extreme,
And the person who is exploding the moment taught for 1 year in a very small town. And they're teaching you how to do what they did for 1 year in a very small town for 8 hours.
Yeah, you nailed it. You got it. Yeah. Oh no, that your district paid like $4,000 to bring.
Yes. Although they can now offer you a raise or any type of quality lunch. So.
Yeah. And let's say by thing I'm slagging my employers. I've worked across the state. I'm from Michigan, moved down to Metro Detroit. I've worked in urban, rural, and suburban environments. This is a truism across the board. Every possible kind of school you can imagine, this happens. All right. The last question is usually the goofy one. So I'm also a big music fan. Since we're both from the Detroit area, from Detroit proper, I'm a few miles outside. I saw recently somewhere online, social media, somebody said, why is Detroit always calling itself Motown? That was a lifetime ago. And then instantly everybody flooded it with like, Detroit doesn't play up Motown enough. Like there should be like, every time we turn around, there should be like a statue of Stevie.
Period.
So I'm gonna assume we're probably on the same team as far as that goes. Like Motown is a good thing. Yes. So if it's the heyday, if you could be good friends with any one of those primary Motown folks, who would you want to be friends with?
Oh. Okay, let me ponder, because I feel like there are.
It's a big question.
That's a really big question. Because I don't want to pick just one.
Oh, that's fair. All right, so you give us like a crew.
I'm almost like
an Avengers team of Motown friends.
I don't know. Diana, I feel like it's the end all be all. But I feel like Stevie feels fun. You know what I mean? Like, I just want to party with everybody. Maybe if I sneak on the bus.
That is how it started, right? The traveling shows. Like there was an actual bus in the early days.
I feel like if I sneak on the bus and they let me on, then I just would have like the best of times. But yeah, I think I'm gonna go for like a combination of like Diana Ross and Stevie Wonder. I feel like I would have all the sass. I feel like they know where the best parties are. I feel like Stevie has a reputation for kind of being,
mm-hmm.
You could throw down.
I feel like you would get the best of all sides of Motown with that particular combo there.
Yeah, that's what I want.
Yeah, that's a great answer. Stevie is always the first one that pops into my mind. I don't know why. I mean, he's just a fun guy, right?
Yeah, I'm like he seems like a party, like a ride and a half. I was originally thinking about one of the girl groups, which is why I was pondering for so long. Because I'm like, okay, if I go with a group, then I can get all the personalities of the girl group.
Yeah. I love it.
Stick to the classics. I'm gonna stick to the classics.
I mean, that's why I asked the question. Like, all of Motown is classics, right? You can't go wrong.
I don't believe somebody argued that they don't know why we still play Motown.
It was one of those, like, what do they call it? Getting ratioed. Like, the person says a thing,
Yes.
and then like, everybody else is going the other way. Like, are you really making that claim right now?
But also, do you know who Detroiters are? We are like home of never forget.
Yes. That's fair. That's fair. I mean, like, that's another way of looking at Detroit. It's like Midwest concentrated. Because I was gonna say Midwesterners don't forget. Like, we'd be polite about it, but we don't forget. But like, Detroit is like, if you condensed the Midwest.
Yeah. Detroit is extra like low. Let's pull up the receipts. We can remind you on this day. This is what you said. We heard you, and you said it. So
yeah, in 1982,
we're home of the brand Detroit versus everybody. Like, why would they think that was what we should do?
Yes, absolutely. I love it. Oh, that's a great note to end on. Thank you very much, Brittany, for joining us tonight. That was fantastic. And I mean it, like, when we get back into like any kind of real world scenario, I mean, we're not that far from each other. So we'll bring you in hopefully somewhere in a year or two. We'll get you out to Farmington for a live reading as well.
I would love to come. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. All right. And to our regular viewers, we'll see you next time. And to new viewers, join us next time. We promote these. They're on KickstART Farmington's YouTube page. We always put them out on Twitter and Facebook and whatnot. Like, you can find us. You know how things work in this world. It's out there. Google and you'll get here. All right. Thanks again to Brittany. Thanks again to our viewers. And we'll see you all next time.